Have you ever wondered how the India-Pakistan-Israel-Palestine relationship has evolved over time? To understand the current dynamics, we need to go back to the mid-20th century. This was a time of great change, with the partition of British India into the newly independent nations of India and Pakistan, and the creation of Israel in the Middle East. India, fresh from its own struggle for independence, initially supported Arab freedom in Palestine. This was a period when newly independent nations across Asia and Africa were finding common cause in their shared histories of colonial rule and their aspirations for a post-colonial world order. Meanwhile, Pakistan, as a newly formed Muslim-majority country, found itself naturally aligned with the Arab cause in Palestine. The creation of Israel was seen not just as a political issue, but also as a religious and humanitarian one. However, as the Cold War set in, global alliances shifted. India's alignment with the Soviet Union put a strain on its relationship with Israel. While India officially recognized Israel in 1950, it kept its diplomatic distance, largely due to its own domestic politics and its desire to maintain good relations with the Arab world. However, the end of the Cold War and the collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 90s led to a re-evaluation of India's foreign policy. Over the last couple of decades, India and Israel have developed a multifaceted relationship encompassing trade, agriculture, science and technology cooperation, and defense cooperation. Israel, for its part, has become India's largest weapons supplier. Both countries have collaborated on various military projects, and the ties between them have only strengthened under the current Indian government. Meanwhile, Pakistan's stance on Israel has remained largely unchanged, with it continuing to voice support for the Palestinian cause on various international platforms. That sets the stage for the shifting dynamics we see today. Let's turn our focus to India and its evolving stance on the Israel-Palestine issue. Under the helm of Prime Minister Modi's Hindu nationalist government, India's relationship with Israel has seen a marked transformation. The ties between the two nations have grown stronger, not just on a strategic and military front, but also ideologically. This strengthening bond has been evident in many fields, from trade and agriculture to science, technology, and defense cooperation. The military ties in particular have been noteworthy. Israel has climbed up the ranks to become India's largest weapons supplier. This partnership has not been limited to mere transactions, with both nations collaborating on various military projects. These ventures stand as a testament to the deep-rooted military and strategic ties that have been fostered. However, this deepening relationship has not been without its controversies. The most significant of these revolves around the use of Israeli spyware, Pegasus. This software has reportedly been used to surveil opposition politicians, activists, officials, and even journalists in India. The revelations have sparked a heated debate about privacy and freedom of speech. While some dismiss the controversy as a conspiracy, opposition politicians have leveled accusations of treason against Modi. The Press Club of India, on the other hand, has described it as an attack on democracy. The relationship between India and Israel extends beyond these controversies, though. It is a multifaceted bond that has evolved over time. The two nations have developed a relationship that spans various sectors, from trade and agriculture to science and technology. This wide-ranging cooperation speaks volumes about the depth and breadth of their connection. This relationship, however, is far from simple. It is complex and multidimensional, with implications extending far beyond the borders of the two nations. It impacts not just the dynamics between India and Israel, but also India's stance on the broader Israel-Palestine issue. India's relationship with Israel is complex and multidimensional, with implications for its stance on the Israel-Palestine issue. Now, let's dive into Pakistan's perspective on the Israel-Palestine issue. Historically, Pakistan has staunchly supported the Palestinian cause. This support is deeply rooted in the founding principles of Pakistan, where the idea of a Muslim homeland resonates with the Palestinian struggle for statehood. From the time of its creation in 1947, Pakistan has been an outspoken critic of Israeli policies and has refused to recognize Israel as a state. The primary reason behind this stance is Pakistan's commitment to the idea of Muslim unity and solidarity. Pakistan's founding father, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, was a firm believer in the rights of the Palestinians, and his principles have been a guiding force in shaping Pakistan's foreign policy. Additionally, Pakistan's geopolitical considerations play a significant role in its stance. The country has traditionally aligned itself with the Arab world, particularly Saudi Arabia and Iran, both of which have strong positions against Israel. Recognizing Israel could potentially strain these relationships, which are of strategic importance to Pakistan. In the current scenario, Pakistan's position remains unchanged. Despite international pressure and the changing dynamics in the Middle East, with several Arab countries normalizing relations with Israel, Pakistan has held its ground. The country continues to advocate for a two-state solution, with Palestine having its own independent viable state with pre-1967 borders and East Jerusalem as its capital. However, this stance has its implications. On one hand, it bolsters Pakistan's image among the Muslim nations and reinforces its commitment to the Muslim cause. On the other hand, it limits Pakistan's diplomatic and economic engagement with Israel, a country with significant global influence. In conclusion, Pakistan's position on the Israel-Palestine issue is a complex interplay of historical ties, religious solidarity, and geopolitical considerations. It's a stance that reflects a commitment to principles, but also a pragmatic approach to international politics. Pakistan's position is a reflection of its historical ties and current geopolitical considerations. In the light of these historical relationships, where do we stand today? As we move through the corridors of the present, we see a complex tapestry of geopolitics unfolding. For instance, India, under Modi's Hindu nationalist government, has been strengthening its ties with Israel, both strategically and ideologically. This is a stark contrast from the past when India, aligned with the Soviet Union during the Cold War, had limited its diplomatic relations with Israel. Today, the two nations have developed a multifaceted relationship, spanning trade, agriculture, science and technology cooperation, and defense. Israel, in fact, has become India's largest weapons supplier, and the two countries have collaborated on several military projects. But this deepening love affair has not been without its controversies. The use of Israeli spyware Pegasus to surveil opposition politicians, activists, officials, and journalists in India has sparked debates about privacy and freedom of speech. Meanwhile, Pakistan continues to stand with Palestine, maintaining its long-standing position. The country's stance is primarily grounded in its religious solidarity with the Muslim world and its historical commitment to the Palestinian cause. So, what does the future hold for these intricate relationships? Looking ahead, there are several potential scenarios and challenges. For India, the deepening ties with Israel could lead to a further strain on its relations with Pakistan. Moreover, its balancing act between its relationship with Israel and its historical support for Palestine might become increasingly difficult to maintain. Pakistan's unwavering support for Palestine could also face challenges. The shifting sands of Middle Eastern politics, with some Arab nations normalizing ties with Israel, might put pressure on Pakistan to reconsider its position. Yet, amidst this complex interplay of politics and alliances, one thing is clear. The future of the India-Pakistan-Israel-Palestine relationship is uncertain and fraught with challenges. Let's recap the key points we've discussed today. We've traveled through time, uncovering the historical background of the complex relationships between India, Pakistan, Israel, and Palestine. We saw how India's stance has evolved over the years, from supporting Arab freedom in Palestine to recognizing Israel in the 1950s, and then further expanding this recognition to strategic, military, and ideological ties in recent years. We also delved into Pakistan's position, highlighting the country's long-standing support for the Palestinian cause and its refusal to officially recognize Israel as a state, a stance rooted in the principles of solidarity with the Palestinian people. Turning our attention to the current scenario, we explored the multifaceted nature of the relationship between India and Israel. This relationship spans trade, agriculture, science and technology cooperation, and notably defense cooperation, with Israel becoming India's largest weapons supplier. The use of Israeli spyware Pegasus in India has also raised concerns about privacy and freedom of speech, adding another layer of complexity to this relationship. Looking to the future, we discuss the potential for these relationships to further evolve. With the changing geopolitical landscape and the pressing need for peace in the region, the positions of these countries could pivot, bringing about new alliances or perhaps even more complexities. In conclusion, the relationship between these four nations is anything but straightforward. It's a web of historical ties, ideological stances, strategic alliances, and political maneuverings. Understanding the complexities of the India-Pakistan-Israel-Palestine relationship is key to making sense of the broader geopolitical landscape.